Hello friends, welcome to the first video of Mrs. Jones on maternity leave, and we are talking about graphing radians. So we've already talked about what radians are. We've also already graphed different angles. We're going to do it super similar, but instead of graphing regular degrees, we are graphing radians. So just like when we were graphing degrees, we talked about up here we have 90 degrees, 180, 270, and 360. Now, this is degrees, but we're talking about radians, so we're actually going to take each of these and convert them into our radians, or multiply them by pi over 180. You can check my math if you need to, or you can just trust, which means this is pi over 2. 180 degrees is just pi. 270 degrees is 3 pi over 2. And 360 degrees is 2 pi. Now, when we're talking about graphing a radian, we're going to have similar questions. So graph it, find an angle, which quadrant is it in? But now we're going to be given things in radians. So we have two options for how we can graph them. Say I'm given 2 pi over 3. The first thing I could obviously do is I could take these radians and I could convert them into degrees. I could multiply it by 180 over pi, cancel out my pi's, and do the math on a handy dandy calculator and get 120 degrees. And then I would graph it on my quadrant, which is over here, past 90, not quite at 180, something like that. The other way I can think of this is I'm going to break that pi away from my fraction. So I'm at 2/3, and then I have pi, or 2/3 of a pi. So if I'm looking at this, I know 180 is a full pi. I do not have a full pi, so I know I am less than 180. And then I know the fraction pi over 2 is the fraction 1/2. And I know that 2/3 is larger than 1/2. So I know my line has to be in quadrant 2, in between a half and a whole. This looks differently for different things. So for example, if we were to have a different radian to graph, so if I have 7 pi over 5, using our second method, so not needing to convert it because you really don't have to, I'm going to take that fraction, 7/5, and think about that's a improper fraction. Our numerator is bigger than the denominator, and I'm going to break it into a mixed fraction, which is 1 whole and 2/5. And if I'm thinking in terms of pi, that means I have an entire pi and then 2/5 of a pi. Now I'm going to look at my fractions again. Over here, technically going 3/2 is 1 whole and a half. So I have to think, is 2/5 larger than a half, or is it smaller than a half? And hopefully you are aware that 2/5 is smaller than 1/2. So I know I have to go a full pi, and I keep going, and this time it's going to be pretty close to that 3 pi over 2, or we find ourselves in that third quadrant. Okay. Ooh, moving all around. Now the last thing I am going to show you is, of course, we can have negative radians, just like we had negative degrees when we were graphing. So if I were to give you a negative pi over 4, same exact process. A positive, I'm following my quadrants, my degrees around in a circle. For a negative, we go in the opposite direction. So I know I'm going in the opposite direction. Pi over 4, that is 1/4. 1/4 is in fact less than a half, so you can think of each of these quadrants are half of a pi. So I know I'm going backwards 1/4 of a radian. And we find ourselves there. Okay. All right, I'm going to give you a couple examples to try on your own. Pause the video after I give you the examples, then unpause it, and I will have an answer on the board so that you can check your work. Okay, so the two radians I want you to graph. The first one is 19 pi over 7. And the next is 7 pi over 4. Okay. Pause the video if you haven't already. All right, hopefully you have solved these problems. Going through, I'm going to take my fraction. I have 19 over 7. I'm going to break it up from an improper to a mixed fraction, which ends up being 2 5/7. So I have gone 2 full pies, which means I'm going to start here and come all the way around. And then 5/7. 5/7 is more than 1/2. So we're ending up in our second quadrant for number 1. Number 1. For number 2, same thing. I'm going to take my improper fraction, turn it into a mixed fraction. And so I know I'm going a full pi. Let's change our color here. I'm going a full pi. And then 3/4 is bigger than 1/2. So I am moving into that fourth quadrant. So number 2 should be out in that direction. Okay. All right. Hopefully this makes sense. If it doesn't, rewatch it, or I guess find another video that you liked better. Good luck. Make sure to do all your practice problems.